Dear human being, beloved soul, I welcome you to my podcast series, Conversations with the Universe. After a near-death experience, my perception of our human existence changed profoundly. I became more sensitive, with all our known senses. I feel more intensely, see people with different eyes, and often take a different perspective on life and our challenges. In my books, I share these altered perspectives and all the knowledge that has flowed through me since my near death and thus record it. For all those who are searching for something more, for the meaning of our existence here on Mother Earth. And it is now a great pleasure for me to share this knowledge with you in this way as a supplement to my books. This season I am dedicating myself to my very first work, the basics of being. I wish you many wonderful insights on your path. Thank you. Love.
The cosmos is energy, and energy does not pass away. Since all energy stores information and has a consciousness, souls are also information stores with an individual consciousness. Just as human cells, for example, divide without losing their information, the source divides into souls, and these further divide into soul parts. These soul parts therefore collect information and then return to the source. As already mentioned, consciousness plays a decisive role in all of this. Through the movement of consciousness over the course of many incarnations and the experience of different forms of expression in different frequency ranges, the soul experiences infinite possibilities of being, the fullness of conscious being. To be on many levels at different times, on different planets, in different circumstances and states, that is the course of being. The source, the so-called origin of all energies, is the source of all being. The religions of our world gave it the name God in order to make the immeasurable and infinite power, wisdom, and purity more tangible for our minds by personifying it. But it is certainly not a being because, despite our human preference for forms and boundaries, it has no form. Anyone who asks about the beginning and the end here is asking too humanly. No science of our intellect will ever be able to physically explore and explain this source. It is an everlasting, incredibly large source of energy that follows laws that we can neither grasp with our human mind nor with spiritual knowledge. It simply is. Just as the universe is eternal, but we can only guess at its origin, path, and destination, and none of this can be grasped with our minds, so the source is an eternal force of being. Similar to the air that exists here in this world, and in the spatiality of our atmosphere, the source exists within us, around us, and in everything. Its power flows through all being. It permeates everything because it is the origin of all matter, whether subtle or gross. It is the secret energy that creates, sustains, and transforms all life. It is infinite and eternal, a kind of perpetual motion machine, an energy that arises within itself, renews itself, and never fades away. And where there is so much energy, there is naturally also an infinite amount of consciousness. This energy is pure consciousness. It is the consciousness of the entire cosmos. It is the spirit of all matter, the consciousness of being. Only in the source is the power, i.e., the energy, as clear and as pure as nowhere else on the journey of souls, and thus only in this state is the consciousness as clear and pure as never before. Just as water on earth always returns to its source in a cycle of precipitation, rivers, seas, and evaporation, so all energies return to the state of the source. The spiral movement of energies out of themselves always finds a point back to themselves. This is the so-called inhalation and exhalation of being. The energy of the source moves out of itself at a slower pace, creating ever more solid forms of matter with a consciousness, the consciousness of the source, but in other states. However, the energies of the source vibrate so high that it is not possible to incarnate this consciousness directly from there. The drop height between the frequency of the source and the frequencies of gross matter, planets, people, living beings, animals, etc., is too high. So a kind of intermediate stage is required for the energies. This intermediate stage is the soul, which you will now learn more about. Just as the cells of your body divide and yet always multiply your DNA, so too does the source divide without losing or separating information. The energy in it is infinite, and therefore this process is also infinite. The resulting split-off energies are all still part of the source, but now act independently. These individual parts are called souls. The souls are therefore a smaller unit of energy from the source, but with an independent consciousness. They are eternally connected to the source and possess the consciousness of the source, but this consciousness is like the empty shell of a fruit. To understand this better, imagine the empty shell of a fruit. The consciousness is clear and pure, but empty of experience, empty of experienced knowledge. You know that one of the main impulses of consciousness is curiosity, and it is precisely this curiosity for fulfilled knowledge that is now beginning to fill the bowl with experiences. To make this possible, individual parts of the mother soul energies split off again. Even smaller units of energy once again form a self-conscious field, which is now the ideal size to be able to incarnate into an organism, be it a human being, an animal, a plant, or other extraterrestrial material forms unknown to us. The specifications for this are provided by the circumstances of the respective matter, i.e. the nature and conditions of the respective place, e.g. a planet. On the one hand, all this is another purely energetic necessity, as a smaller energy part is easier to incarnate for physicality in matter. Think of it like a 1,000,000-volt battery that is filled into small individual battery units, as the human being organism can only cope with a small number of volts of energy. On the other hand, the conscious being of the source can experience the whole diversity of being better, more varied, more colorful and richer through the multi-division into souls and soul parts. It can be more, experience more at the same moment. Just as there are galaxies, souls in the universe, source, which in turn house planets, soul parts, although all these planets and galaxies are part of the universe, the forms of being are all just expressions of the source. To be and thereby consciously work in connection with everything is the goal of being. Let me briefly summarize once again. The source is, metaphorically speaking, as strong as a 1,000,000-volt battery and more all-radiant than anything else in the universe. Its energy is too strong to incarnate into individual organisms. Moreover, splitting off the energies from the source allows for an even greater variety of experiences. Therefore, metaphorically speaking, a kind of 1,000-volt battery is created. The souls. Souls are therefore the first form of expression of the energy of the source. But even these are still too strong for an organism and too few to be able to experience real diversity, and therefore create another, even smaller energy unit, the soul parts. It is such a part of a mother soul that ultimately incarnates into plants, animals, or humans. The consciousness of this part of the soul is just as clear and pure as that of the source, but for the first time with an independent conscious feeling. Now, the contamination of the organism, as well as the very slow and low vibrating frequencies of the gross matter compared to the home energy of the source, cause this part of the soul to split again in the organism. This creates the so-called soul parts, i.e., further parts of a whole. Like a mirror, which will always be a mirror when you put it together, the soul part of the soul splits into further soul parts. The incarnated part of the soul loses its awareness of the whole, the mother soul and the source. This loss of consciousness is often referred to as the veil of forgetfulness, and is an expression of the inevitable experience of the powerlessness of every conscious energy form. But this veil, in turn, is the drive that can now experience and shape consciousness simultaneously in different expressions of different levels of consciousness. Consciousness is therefore the spirit of the souls, and just as a colony of bees consists of an infinite number of bees from one hive, the soul parts must now first become aware of themselves in all the levels and states over eons of incarnations in order to then experience themselves as a whole. As you know, a lot of power is lost when the energy slips into the organism. The finely vibrating energy form of the soul moves into the much lower vibrating frequency range, into dense matter. The organism becomes a kind of dress over the finely vibrating energy of the incarnating part of the soul. Curiosity moves the energies out of themselves, and forgetting on this path makes them long for the origin, for the truth, for the way back. The veil of forgetfulness, which is actually only a consequence of the fragmentation of consciousness, becomes the tool of the force that is supposed to maintain the longing and curiosity for everything. Longing and curiosity are the motor of being. The curiosity of consciousness drives the energies into slowing down to the most solid state of energy, and longing is the impulse of this energy to remove itself from this state of slowing down, to speed up again. How, when, and where, in the low vibrational levels of time and space, this point of return happens for the respective soul is determined solely by the source itself. Its power, its consciousness, which permeates, directs, and guides everything, decides everything, including this reversal movement. To know is not to create. The soul parts dive into the lower frequency ranges in order to experience knowledge there and to consciously experience being. Consciously being a human being, consciously being gross materiality, consciously experiencing its heaviness, consciously loving, consciously hating, and so much more. Knowing something does not mean being it. The journey of souls is therefore the teaching of being. You are such an energy that has its actual home and source in a different frequency level, a very specific part of a soul family, also often referred to as the higher self. In fact, your actual soul family is on a much higher vibrational level, close to the state of source. This means that you are partly here in the earthly world as an individual energy, but above all as a messenger and sender of your actual home, your soul family. You are a satellite of an energy that wants to gather experiences in a variety of ways. Such a soul family is usually divided into countless parts and seeks to experience knowledge from infinite impressions in this way. So when you return home, you and your part become part of these many parts of a mother soul again, but you never lose everything you have experienced. On the contrary, the experiences of the other satellite energies then become yours too, without you losing your individuality. Your names, your memories, your experiences, everything that has happened remains because it is you. It remains part of your energy because you have an individual consciousness. But since this energy is part of a soul, and this soul is again part of the source and connected to everything, all that has been experienced also becomes another part of all that, all of the being, all of the source. Your experiences are your gift to this knowledge, a gift to the soul and therefore to the source, a gift that will exist forever without time and space. But your individuality, your consciousness, will never pass away. Like a kind of storehouse of knowledge, the actual soul has witnessed these experiences through you and therefore grows and expands its knowledge through you and your experiences. Souls can only expand and shape their consciousness through the individual parts of their soul. Each person is therefore such an opportunity for the soul family to grow and return home, back to the source. It enables the transmigration of souls so that this consciousness experiences all forms of being and expressions of the cosmos, situations, possibilities, and non-possibilities in order to become its knowledge again. The source is creative. It wants to create and fill the knowledge with experienced knowledge, more and further, deeper and higher. The goal of this process is the expansion of creation. Only the movement of energy, i.e., the movement of consciousness, creates forms. This is the goal of creation, which on the one hand wants to transform knowledge into knowledge filled with experience, and on the other hand wants to be creatively active. The energy zones, which arise from the movement of energy from the center and back, are a kind of playground for shaping knowledge. On the dense energy level, these schools are the planets that offer the spaces and special potentials in which the energies can move along the timeline in order to gain experience. In the spiritual, subtle cosmos, these are the energy levels, which I will explain to you in more detail in the chapter Energy Worlds. They are closely connected to the material worlds and are always in action and reaction with each other. Ultimately, the spiritual and material platforms together form a great university of being, the cycle of being, the life of consciousness. Thus, In the material, earthly plane, the individually very different qualities of the planets affect each other, just as the respective time affects them. And depending on the level of consciousness of the soul, the satellite energies dive into different such spaces at different times in order to experience the knowledge there. If the energy never becomes aware of itself and the connection to the mother soul, to the source, to the all one, this energy part, human being, has forgotten the connection and thus lives an unconscious life. But the opportunity of your life is as follows. Firstly, to become aware of all parts of your soul part. Secondly, to become aware of the connection to the soul part of a mother soul. Thirdly, to recognize and experience the source from the awareness of the connection to the mother soul. Fourthly, to strengthen this connection in order to gain strength, i.e., awareness, yourself. Then begins the decisive movement of consciousness, the return back to the state of the source. Fifth, through the remembrance of wholeness, the experience of the whole occurs, and with it, the experience of the fullness of all being. Then you are the connection itself. You are energy that has a consciousness. Thus you are an individual part of a soul, depending on how much you have already remembered the connection with your higher self and the connections with the All One, i.e., how aware you have become of them. The more flexible, wider, and stronger your consciousness is connected to the soul, aware of it, unbound by time and space.
Carpe Vitam. Thank you very much for listening, and I would like to remind you to join our community Spine. We are a community that wants to help you live a healthier life, practice your spirituality, and expand your consciousness. We help you find and connect with healers around the world, and we help you give your life a new meaning in different ways. We are Spine, connections that help.